Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds. For sharing and learning from one another, it's a vibe. ReadswithRosa podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educator spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, checking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits, including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Making strides, monumental. And rock with me and get down to this new jam. With my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's the grand slam. I'm out. Tsala Falava and welcome to the Reads with Rosa podcast. Today is the 90th episode, and as you know, fam, I always try to make every 10th episode extra special, which is why I'm very excited to introduce today's guest. She is the owner of Third Day Floristry, and she is passionate about working with and uplifting women. She has years of experience in church ministry, and since 2019, she has been serving alongside her husband, Reverend Sapati Tima, as chaplain at the Vaughan Park Retreat Centre in Long Bay, Auckland. She is an advocate for our youth and our Pasifika communities. And through her creativity and art, she is sharing her love for the gospel through action and service. Welcome to the show, Meiolandre Tima. How are you, sis?
Thank you, sis. Thank you for the introduction. Made me sound so flash.
Hey, stop it, man. How are you? How is the Auckland weather this Saturday morning?
I'm looking out to the Long Bay Beach right now, and it's a bit grey, but you know how Auckland is.
Oh, man. You know, it's funny. You know, the weather is like when I was there for Christmas recently, the first 2 weeks, beautiful sunshine. Like you really felt like summer. It was summertime. I thought the weather was so nice and warm. The week leading up to when I was coming home, it was like raining. It was like winter. I was like, man, I left winter and I came here for winter again. Crazy, man. Crazy.
Yep, still the same.
I'm so jealous. My view right now is my lounge area. Probably not as nice as your Long Bay Beach view, which regardless of the gray, I imagine it's beautiful. So I'm a bit jealous. Okay, so before we get started, thank you for coming through today. It is such an honor to have you on the show, to be able to hear some of your stories and some of your journey, not just as a mother, but as a partner to church ministry. So I'm really looking forward to that. But before we get started, I would like you to shout out your villages. I'm sure your aunties and uncles and cousins are watching this right now, so make them proud, sis.
They better be watching. Just want to say thank you, Rosa. I know we go way back, so it makes me feel more comfortable just chatting with you today to have this Tsala Noa. My villagers, I'll probably just keep it to 10.
Now you go.
My mother's from Vaiala, Mota'a. Her father, Letama Tina, is from Vatia in American Samoa. And my father's side is Whalilatai and Saipipi and Savai. So yeah, and then I could name another 10 villages, but we'll stop at those main ones.
So, if you're out there, fam, if any of you are related to Landre, share this episode, share the podcast, get all the extended family on here to listen to Landre sharing her journey and story today. I'm excited, sis. I'm excited. Well, I guess, let's get into it. I always kind of like to ask our guests first, like about their younger I'm not saying you're old, by the way. I'm talking about like childhood days. Like, this podcast is called Reads with Rosa, which is, we do talk about many things, but reading, books is something that I love and is a part of what this podcast is about, advocating for reading. Reading is important, fam, for those who are listening, regardless of your age. So, sis, were you a reader? Tell us about younger Meiolandre at school. Were you a reader or were you, yeah?
Oh, I think I was definitely a reader because I'm no good at sports. I can't throw
Okay.
a ball or catch a ball, so I was the one inside the classroom reading at lunchtimes, I bet. Yeah, my younger self, I think my grandmother, being a early childhood educator and teacher, a pioneer for our onga amata here in New
Mm.
Zealand, she read to us from a very young age. And then even when I had my firstborn, even when he was still inside my stomach, she was like, read books to him. And I'm
Oh,
like, really? But, I took um, photos of my 4-month-old son, 3 months, and we're reading to him. And I think
wow.
that has really paid off. Now that he's a 13-year-old, he loves reading probably more than I did at that age. But yeah, it's funny you asked that. I just thought of that now, that memory of my grandmother reading to us every night,
Mm,
mostly books in Samoan. She's written books as well in Samoan for
mm.
our mata age level. So yeah, I would say I was a reader.
So, that's awesome, eh? And I have to, you know, pay respects to your grandmother, as a role model, and I'm sure as a mentor for you as a young person growing up. What was it like to, you mentioned she is a pioneer of Aonga Amata in New Zealand. So tell us about that, of what you knew about that as you were growing up and seeing her in these different community spaces, changing lives,
Mhm.
introducing initiatives.
Yeah, I think it's hard to tell my story without mentioning my grandmother, just because of the big influence she had on me personally, on my family, and everything she did from a young age. I thought it was the norm. It's not till you get older and you have peers, and then you're like, oh, they didn't have this or they didn't get this. So I felt very much blessed. Um, like going into high school, that my grandmother instilled a lot of that in me. Our anganu'u, our culture, o Zuma, Maanga, our ngangana Samoa, even like tautua, serving the community. So that's very much how she was, and that's what she wanted to pass on, to us. So yeah, big heart. She was a very colorful lady,
Mm.
very bright. And that's not something I have. Like, she's the life of the party. Where if I
Mm.
walk in the party, I'm like going to the corner.
Mm.
But she's passed on many of her gifts to her children and her grandchildren. Yeah.
Man. So, with that, growing up and surrounded by these by your grandmother and, you know, these teachings, what were your hopes and dreams for the future? Like, what were, with that upbringing, what were some of the things that you were thinking about in terms of, okay, like when I'm this age or when I'm older, I'm going to be this, do you know?
Yes. So my grandparents, raised me for big part of my life. They raised me because my parents were still studying in Fiji when I was born. So I think as a child, I was very blessed that I didn't really worry about the future. I didn't think too much about what am I going to do when I grow up. But what I did know was that I wanted my values to be a part of, my future, which was, our culture and our faith. So I know that whatever I wanted to do or whatever I wanted to be, it will have to have our anganu'u and, fatuatua with faith and Jesus and God in my everyday life.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Your grandparents were in the ministry, like efakasa. So you know, you were involved in the church. Off, you just it was just like, tell us about what that was like for you. Being a part of the ministry from a very young age through your grandparents.
Yeah, so e whakasa Mangeli Sasae, e whakasa Posese and Mangri is where I was born, where I grew up. And I could say that was my village. That was my extended family, was the local and all the families in the church. I feel so, so blessed that I was able to grow up in that environment. Everybody was supportive. And I feel that even as I became a young adult and entered into leadership roles in the church, I felt they had my back. They were praying for me. These were I called them my aunties, my uncles, my mamas, because they were with me from day one. Every day, like you would know, there's something on at church. Like Sundays, you're there from morning till night.
That life, that life.
Yeah, Alabo, the Alfei Pese, and then moving on to Mafkanga Kinga, so that was the life I had with church. And I remember too, as a young kid, being like, oh, I can't wait till I get to go to the junior youth. I can't wait till I'm old enough to be in the Alkana Wall. I can't wait till I join the Alfei Pese, even though I can't sing. But yeah, it was just awesome. Yeah. Or lots of awesome memories for me being in that focus. So
So then, growing up in New Zealand, so obviously our church villages, the people that we look up to, the people, we're thinking, like you said, okay, at this age, I'm going to be the older class in Sunday school, then I'm going to go to junior youth, then I'm going to be out. These are the different steps within our church village and environment. Outside of that, growing up in New Zealand, living in the diaspora, like, how difficult was it for you outside of that space to come to terms with your identity? Or is it that the church environment was just really impactful and it kept you strong in terms of like knowing your culture and identity? Therefore, when you go out into the community, it was all good. You were just like, I know who I am. I know what I got to do.
yeah, I'd say it was more impactful. Growing up in the Ifakasa church and then having that really strong sense of identity and that sense of belonging. Knowing that this is your foundation. But I think it wasn't until university that it didn't come with its without its challenges. There were challenges, but definitely more so positive in that, like you said, whatever was thrown towards me or at me, I would be like, I know I'm God's daughter. I know this is my village. I know I represent these people. I represent my church. So it did make me think twice about what to say. It did make me think twice about what to do because you belong to someone. You know that you are his, so that you don't, fall into that trap of, okay, I'm going to give into what's not of my value, that kind of thing. So that's something I want to pass on to my children because obviously, we're here in Long Bay. We are in an area that's predominantly white. We are no longer in the Efaka South Church. We're not in South Auckland where we breathe, our culture. So, but like we say, nothing's impossible with God. So I know it's my job as a mother, our job as parents to pass on those values, those beliefs, and instill our culture and our language into my children. So yeah.
Yeah. Now that you mention, you guys are settled over there. You're, serving over on the North Shore. I guess I'm going to jump to that part of my questioning, which tell us about that transition. Like going from South Auckland to the North Shore. Was it culture shock?
When we came, my son was finishing his last year of primary school. And when he was born, he went to our onga amata. When my granddad passed away, we moved to Whakasa, Otahu.
Mm.
So he went to Se Wāngongoa onga amata there. Then he went to Robertson Road, bilingual department there. So when we came here, it was definitely a culture shock. We moved areas, we moved church, and even though we were still in Auckland, it felt like we were a world away from where we had been.
You're in the Beverly Hills, huh? Just kidding. Yeah, are you in the in the Hamptons? I'm kidding. I'm kidding, sis.
Yeah, so even when we came, everyone's like, "Oh, wow, awesome! That's so cool." But honestly, at the start, it didn't feel like that.
Mm,
You know, there were lots of whys to God. Was like, "Why, Lord, have you taken us away from where we know, where we grew up, where we're comfortable? You
mm,
know, where our life is and where our family are." So it was a transition. There was a lot of things to navigate at first, and
mm,
then. Thankfully, when the goal is to be closer to God, your heart becomes more thankful and grateful.
mm.
So even though we moved here and even though we're right next to the beach living a millionaire life on,
Mm.
$10, I didn't feel like that at first. I was still like, oh, but
Mm.
now, yeah, our eyes are open, our hearts
Yeah.
are open, and just see God's hand.
Yeah. God's timing, God's
Yeah,
reasoning.
yeah, yes.
You know, you mentioned your son. How have you seen him? He left, you moved when he was finishing his primary school. So, how have you, from a mother's perspective, how has he grown in terms of like, the environment that he's in and the different school? Like, what have you seen that makes you just go, oh man, I'm just so proud of this kid? Like, do you know?
Yes. Hey, hope I don't cry because when it comes to my kids, I'm like, ooh.
Uh,
Yeah, no, so immensely proud of him. Like, and that's what I talked about before, which I think he carries is he knows he represents his culture. He represents God. So wherever he goes, I see that. So when he came here, he went straight away to intermediate. So in his 2 years of intermediate, he's been in leadership roles.
mm.
So when you see that brown kid with all these white kids, you're like, yes, son, you do it for
Yes.
us. you know? So he's been good. Children are resilient, and I think they adapt faster than we do
Mm,
as adults. He makes friends easily, and yeah, I think that's what makes us most proud is that he's representing himself well as
mm.
his people, and his faith. Um, yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. Like it just, it really goes to show, right? Like I just, yeah, like you said, and like kids they're fast learners. They warm to spaces where they trust, the people in the room. Like I just think, um, he's just an example of you. It doesn't matter what school you go to or where you are. Like it's you make that experience. You know, I just think like labeling ourselves and saying that we only belong in one space or one community, we should never limit ourselves to opportunities and just um walking into unfamiliar spaces, sorry,
Mm,
is what I'm trying to say. So whether it's a school or whether it's a job or just meeting new people, it's super challenging. And when you see that children can do that at a young age, there's no reason why adults can't do that as well. Like young adults, there's no reason like we should, I think, as Pasifika, as Samoans, like you said, I no one can take away the culture and the
mm,
values that have been instilled in us, right? So it's so encouraging and so exciting to hear, that your son is excelling in his own way, like he is just, oh, you must be super proud. You guys must be so proud, and it's really cool, man. We need to hear these stories. Like celebrate our children and our young people wherever they go,
Yeah.
whatever spaces they're moving in. We need to uplift and tell those stories because we're not just one story. Okay, I'm being super doing the education thing here. Let me stop. Going on.
Good, all good.
I'm proud of you, son. I want to, since we are talking about the ministry, so on your ministry, you and Sapati's ministry there um, at Vaughan Park. So on the 25th of November 2019, Rev Sapati, you guys were appointed as chaplain at Vaughan Park in Long Bay, North Shore. It is now 2023. Sis, tell us about what this journey has been like. You've already alluded to some of it, this idea, God's timing and,
Mm,
questioning his reasons for bringing you and Sapati to where you are serving now. Um, yeah, share a little bit about that.
yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, so it's just been a little over 3 years, yeah, since we've moved here, and it was such a good time too because it was before the very first COVID
yeah.
lockdown. So I was like, oh, thank you, Lord, you got the space for us to be in lockdown. And
Mm,
um, so in 2017 was when we came to the Anglican Church. Not
mm,
formally. We thought it would just be a little break, a
right.
little holiday for us, um, just to step away for a bit and just be still, be still in God's presence because a lot had happened. But things happened, and then this role came up for my husband, and there were church leaders who asked him if this was something that he might want to do. And it's funny because back then we had this, it was like a dream list. Like, okay, we're at this place in life. What do we want? And, top of the list was we still want to serve God. And so when this came up, we're like, okay, maybe we forgot to write, we want to serve God in the Ifakasa church. We missed that part of the sentence, Lord. But
Yeah.
so it's been about obedience, just obeying God's word and His will for our lives. So coming here wasn't easy, not just for ourselves, but for our family as well. But I know just it's only been 3 years down the line, but we can see and our family can see, oh, okay, this is what you're talking about, God. This is why this happened, Lord. So um, yeah, it's been awesome. And with when we came, my little girl was 3, and my boy was just about to turn 1. That's another blessing that I've been able to just be a mother, spend quality time with them. Because even with our son Salan, while we're in the ministry, it was like, okay, we'll see you at 10 o'clock tonight,
Mm,
or so that's been another blessing, is that we just have that family time. And we we do believe that family is your first ministry, and it was really hard to kind of live that before, but being
mm,
here, being able to just live out that belief and that value that your family is your first ministry. Very different to being a whakua in a traditional church, in the Efakasa church. I had more time,
mm,
um, and so that's where Third Day Floristry was born, because I was like, okay, I need something for myself. Um, so I could say that came out of nowhere, but if you believe God's hand on your life, you're like, okay, Lord, I see why Third Day Floristry came about. Um, and that's how our retreats have happened. When it started, it was more so for flower arrangements. Um, Another gift I think was passed on from my grandmother, Falkeonga Falsa on
mm.
Sundays, and you go on Saturdays, spend the whole day cleaning the church and doing flower arrangements. And I loved it, I did love it. And so that was something I missed and did for friends and family. And then it just turned into this little business. And through Generator New Zealand, they've been helping people just start off with businesses. So that's where I thought it would stop. But God was like, we're going to use Third Day Floristry to run retreats for people. So, yeah, it went from this little thing. I thought it would be this thing, but God magnified that for us, for His glory. So, it's been awesome.
What role do you, in terms of your children, what role do they play in your ministry, or how do you, um, yeah, like,
Our children, I think it's pretty much the same in that they were just with us.
mm,
We take them with us. Probably even more so now because we live, 45 minutes, an hour away from family, who are all in South Auckland. We have to take them with us. And that's kind of how it is, I reckon, with those in ministry. So they see that, and I think they enjoy it as well. They get to meet new people. They get to be our little helpers on the
mm,
side. But most importantly, I think they just see us serving. So we're not just talking about it, but actually doing it. So it becomes a family affair,
mm.
really. Yeah.
If you could write a story about where you came from and where you are now, your story has not ended, obviously, as you continue to evolve. What would you, what would that story be called, do you think?
Oh my gosh, probably something about it's not my story.
Mm,
I think it would be called "It's Not My Story."
mm,
10 years ago, 5 years ago, I never ever would have thought I'd be here right now, in
mm,
this place, in this space. Um, so it's like, we can plan all we want, but
mm,
God's plan prevails, and it's His will be done.
mm,
Um, so yeah, I can talk about a lot of things in my story, but it's just that's probably another title too, is like God's hand on my story. Just Him being there with us through it
mm,
all, like, every step of the way.
mm.
Yeah.
I want to backtrack a bit. I do want to talk about the retreats and go a bit more into that, and highlight that the work, the way you're serving through outreach and retreats. But I want to just backtrack a little and talk about your educational journey and how that shaped you. Uh, so I well, what did you study like for undergrad? Like, because
Mm,
your masters, you did a masters in youth development, right? Uh,
yes.
but were you like, as you were studying, like, what were your kind of plans? Like, this is my dream job. This is what I'm going to do. Like,
Yeah. So my undergrad was in social science. So I
uh,
went straight to uni after high
mm,
school, and then that was a straightforward degree, just doing it to get a piece of paper,
mm,
making friends, and then after that, lived life a little bit and got married, had our first boy, um, and then I was like, I want to do a master's. You always
mm,
just want to go the next step, and by then we were already in ministry,
mm,
and I just thought I wanted to combine my values and what I had was passionate about. So I knew it was young people, I knew it was culture, I knew it was church and faith. So yeah, that my master's in youth development, and my topic was youth participation in the Ifakasa churches
mm,
in South Auckland. And I wanted to highlight the positives, because I know there had been other research on why young people leave
mm,
traditional church and so forth. So I wanted to just highlight the positives and what makes young people enjoy church, what
mm,
makes them want to stay, and then also um, just talking about what are the challenges they have in the church. Um, so yeah, that's just how passionate I am, and how I,
mm,
am, still am with our local, our Ifakasa and young people.
mm. Are we still continuing to evolve? as a church, uplifting and building up our youth.
Yes, I think if you have faith, the answer will always be yes.
Mm,
That our church, the Ifakasa or any church is,
mm,
still growing, um, especially and still developing in that area for our young people who are not just the future of the church, but the now of the church.
yes.
But in my thesis, I referenced and quoted my granddad who wrote as well during his time, and so that was 2013. And but 30 years prior to that, he wrote about the same issues that I was talking
Mm,
about. So I was like, hey, he identified this, he saw this. It's been 20, 30 years, and we're still going,
mm,
um, these same issues or same challenges. um, so it is a tricky subject. It's a priority, I reckon. And like you said, being outside looking in now, a lot of things I see online, especially social media, make me
mm,
smile. Like I see there are more junior youth in the churches. There's now like mafkanga for young adults or young parents. So I see that as growth in the local that will look into um, just identify those groups. It's not just like the traditional
mm,
mafkanki Okanavo, but we're looking at young parents and young teenagers.
mm.
So yeah, it's good.
Vaughan Park Retreat Centre. Let's talk about the place. There are many programs run through it. It's obviously you do retreats through there now. There's a chapel there. There's a research centre, and you have people coming and going, right?
Mm, of
Groups come and
course.
go. What is that like when you're meeting so many different people from different walks of life?
Mhm.
Uh, yeah. What is that?
Yeah.
Tell us about.
We're just, we're so in awe, we're continuously in awe of God's love because we know if we hadn't come here, we wouldn't have met all these awesome people, all these wonderful servants of God, like people of all different walks of life here. The role is Sapati's role, my husband's role, but, he always drags me into like, help him do this and do that. And I'm like, hey, I'm not getting paid now.
Excuse me, do I get a
Just
bonus here? What's going on?
but yeah, like so we pretty much bring that model here, the Ifakasa model of, Inga Wefakasi,
Mm,
the Whewhiau and the Whakua, we work together as husband and wife here too. So with retreat programs, there's ongoing retreats all the time here at Vaughan Park, but it's,
mm,
we see it's just the European churches. It's the European people coming in.
mm,
You rarely see our Pacifica people coming for retreats. So we're like, oh, what can we do? What can we do
mm,
for our people? And so that's why we looked at funding. We applied for funding through Ministry of Health, Ministry of Pacific Peoples, so that we could run retreats for our people. And that's how we've brought in like our Ifakasa community, those that we're still in contact with, invited friends, family to come because uh, almost every single person is like, what's a retreat?
mm.
When we're like, come to this retreat, they're like, Wangamia. But, we just say, look, it's kind of like glamping.
Mm.
We have lots of church camps here. So, like, it's similar to a church camp, but you don't have to cook your own food. You
Yeah.
don't have to clean
And
up
the view is like amazing.
get a bed, not a mattress. So,
Man.
yeah, we just wanted our people to experience retreats because we saw how good it is,
Mm,
and as much as it's foreign, it's a foreign concept really for a lot of our people, but
mm,
we see the good that it does, and it's mostly, that verse in the Bible where it's just be still,
mm,
be still and know that I'm God. Because we're so busy, you know, our people, like, always on the go, doing this, doing that. And so we're like, hey, rest, come here, regather, refill your cup, and then go back
mm,
and continue to serve your your communities, your family, and your churches.
Mm. Yeah, I think part of is the whole busy thing is like just so everyone is we as people are just used to it's like giving to
Mm,
others, like giving energy, giving, just supporting others. And like you say, like sometimes you do need to go on a retreat, or you do need to get away for a little bit of time just to uh regroup. He said, regroup, have some you
yeah,
time, have some time to reflect, um and take care of yourself first. Like, I know, like, there's always talk around like self-care, and it's, a lot of there are people who are fans of it, and there are others who are like, oh, their self-care, it's different for everyone, but it's just so important, because naturally we are people who give a lot of our time, and a lot sometimes it's at the expense of your mental health, and your
yeah,
just your own health. So yeah, I think it's great. I love what you guys are doing, in terms of that outreach program, and just it's so cool. And even more so bringing in our own people, and saying, hey, look, you can go on a retreat too, there's no reason why you can't, like, have this time away and refill your cup. Um, the Third Day Floristry, flower therapy, the inspiration, you've mentioned, your grandmother and the impact she had on you. Uh, so tell us about, you mentioned it before, but how, yeah, man, like being able to share through the art of floristry, and now through retreats and stuff, like how fulfilling is that? Like how does that make you feel? Like, here's a way that you're serving
mm,
others and uplifting others.
yeah, definitely. It's very fulfilling doing the retreat. It's a lot of work, especially getting the funds for it. There's a lot of report writing, budgets, planning, and organizing. And last year we had retreats on like anxiety. It was a lot of it was around mental health.
Mm,
So anxiety, anger. We had men's retreats, women's retreat. Grief was our
mm,
very first retreat about 2 years ago. Just how to deal with grief, loss, and trauma. We had youth retreats and a youth camp as well for the younger kids. So it's a broad um, scope, but in each of them, we've been able to use our own language. We've
mm.
been able to speak Samoan, especially to our elders. We had an elders retreat too called Retired Not Tired. Um,
Oh.
yeah, so it's just making them feel like comfortable because I think it was hard for a lot of people to understand too why we wanted to make some of the retreats more kako waka waka Samoan
Mm,
people, but especially for the older community, they're not going to open up if you come and you can't speak your own, your own language,
mm,
their first language, our mother tongue. So that's what we wanted to do was just address the mental health impact and issues, especially with COVID and lockdown, and then just using our culture and our ways of doing things. It wasn't like because of retreat and then come and do the Balangi concepts and
mm,
methods. We still did it our way. We had our loku, we had
mm,
our zala noa, and sharing in that whaalualo as well. Um, so it was really cool. It was really good, and that's why when I say God's hand was on this and on Third Day Floristry, because with me when it started, it was like, oh, just create flowers,
mm,
just my creative space, just to have me time. But then God was like, look, I'm gonna use Third Day Floristry because without it, you can't get funding.
mm,
Individuals we can't apply for funding for things, so. And then that's where we came up to with doing the activity of flower arrangements during the retreats.
mm,
Just like flower therapy. And I thought, oh, I think this is going to be a bit of a miss, but
Mm,
it was really good. Everyone was just in their space,
yeah.
doing their whatever they wanted to do. It all looked different, but everyone just enjoyed doing something different or
Mm.
just enjoyed being creative because they're familiar with flowers. So it was cool.
And the story behind the name?
Third Day Floristry. So my husband actually came up with it because I was like, I can't think of anything, and we had to give a name quickly. So he was like, God made flowers, plants, trees on the third
Mm.
day. So and I was like, oh yes, I like that, Third Day Floristry. But it was funny on our very first retreat, we had a Christian counselor on Samoa 40, and she was like, where did this name come from? And when we told her, she goes, oh, I actually thought it was because Jesus rose on the
I
third day.
thought that too.
Did that too. Oh, you know what? It's that too.
I was just like, I was like, oh, oops, wrong research. Okay.
Both
I mean, it's
though,
cool. It's
but
cool.
yeah, so
Man.
that's how it came up. And I think that motivated me to do things because if I had just named it like Landry's Forestry, I'll be like, what's it now? What's
Um,
it now? I'm tired.
and I mean, like you've done flower arrangements for so many different occasions. Where is your customer base from? Is it all word of mouth, just through social media, your followers? Where have Is it just Auckland? Like, have you, you know?
Yeah, it's funny, and I'm probably gonna expose myself because because I'm always like, please, no one wanting any flowers. I really enjoy doing it for family and friends,
Yeah.
and not having that pressure of, oh my
Mm.
gosh, this is for a wedding of somebody I don't know, or 300 people are gonna see these arrangements. Putting that pressure on myself.
Judging every stem and leaf that's out of place.
Oh, that's exactly what I do. When I do flowers, and it's just like my grandmother.
Mm.
After we do the keonga whalisa, she'll literally go sit in the front pew,
Yeah.
in the middle, then the back, and be like, "Yeah, va'aile fungala, awale." And we're like, "Oh my gosh, it looks good," but it's funny because that's what I do now.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I do now. But it's mostly been family, friends, and then word of mouth.
Mm.
I haven't been too good at promoting it, so I know that this is God doing it all for me. But yeah, weddings, funerals, and then even just everyday gifts. Yeah,
Okay, for everyone listening on the podcast platforms, for those who are watching
we'll
via
post. We'll
YouTube,
post.
check out Instagram at Third Day Floristry. There's some beautiful pictures on there. So if you're getting married, or if there's an occasion coming up, you want to send your loved ones something special, check out at Third Day Floristry. They're also on Facebook. You can check the bio of this episode. I have all uh, the links for the different social media accounts. You can also, if you're interested in like flower therapy or retreats, you can check out Vaughan Park Retreat Centre. We've also got the link there, so you can see the wonderful work that Rev Sapati and Landre are doing. In different communities and these spaces, so check it out, fam. She's not saying she's tired. She's open to God's hand extending. So make sure you check the links in the bio. So I want to, you've mentioned your grandmother, just the role model, that you had growing up. You had your grandfather. Who are some other uh, mentors or just other role models who helped shape you into the woman and mother that you are today?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. It's always been my grandparents. Whainga me Nyolesina Tangoilelangi. My own mom, my auntie. It's just them two and their brother.
Mm,
So it's a small family compared to, our traditional Samoan family. So I think everyone has had an influence on me, helping to raise me, helping to mold me into the person I am, and
Mm.
just yeah, especially with faith and family. Um, yeah, but
What would your siblings, how would they describe you? Or how do you think they would describe you?
oh, hopefully they're not here.
I don't know if that's a good laugh or a bad laugh. I'm trying to figure it out.
It's a nervous laugh.
It's a nervous laugh.
Yeah, I'm the eldest
Yeah.
grandchild on my mom's side. So I've got two younger sisters, Berasi Sina, and then the baby is Venga
Mm,
Amen. But in saying that too, we're raised together with my first cousins, and like you would know, they're
mm.
like my siblings too, Messina, Wola, and Ailau. I'll probably say that they'll probably say I'm a wannabe manager of the family.
Oh, okay, okay.
Hey, shall we do this? And
Mm.
um, no, yeah, I think they love me, so they forgive me for my shortcomings.
Um, you were talking about the North Shore earlier, and I wanted to ask, what's something that our people don't know about the North Shore?
The North Shore, I would say they are friendlier than you think they are, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that because when I came, I was like on my guard, probably for the first month, everywhere we walked, everyone we saw, I'd be like, "What? Are you trying to say something to me?
Are you looking at me funny? What? Come over here.
Because I'm brown, or
Are you judging me right now? Are you checking out what I'm wearing? What's going on?
yeah, are you calling the cops on me or what?" Definitely, no. There, lots of awesome people.
Mm,
Our neighbors, they grow beautiful vegetables. So they come and bring us fruits and veggies from their gardens. They say hello. We see each other on the beach. So you
oh,
actually start to feel like a local because you're like, hey, I know these people on the beach. We say hi to each other, when we see each other. So there's lots of awesome people here too.
mm,
It's not that stereotype, and I think it's the same for them when they think of South Auckland.
mm,
And yeah, that's what we tell ourselves too. We're like, hey, look, we represent Samoa and South Auckland, so let's be kind and be
yeah.
extra nice.
As a mother, what kind of world would you like your children to grow up in?
Oh, yeah, we always think about that, and then what they're missing out on, and
Mm,
then the new things that we can introduce to them and give them that we didn't have.
mm,
So, mostly a kind world, as cliche as it sounds, but, a world where everyone just loves each other, gives grace to each other. There's no condemnation, because we all are not perfect people. So, just a world where they feel comfortable and feel safe to be who they are, you know,
mm,
in a world where they just love and honor God and all that they do. Because I think if they have that, then everything else will just fall into place.
mm. When you think about this day and age of social media, the 24-hour news cycle, all of that stuff, does it scare you as a mother?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I sometimes think, our children have um, more to fight than we did because of, the technology world that we're in. Our
Mm,
son's 13 and we still don't allow him to have social media just yet.
mm,
We just want to protect them a little bit longer. And I know we don't have long to go before he's just going to have an Instagram page or Facebook page. But yeah, so I think a lot of it is that Zalanoa, have that open communication, have that safe communication with our children.
mm,
And, just because you don't talk about something doesn't mean it's not going to happen. So it's just, really being open to talking to them and them
mm,
feeling safe to talk to parents.
mm.
So yeah.
And so, just lastly on, motherhood, how has that changed your life, like
Mm,
overall?
oh yeah. dramatically. like definitely has changed who I am. Hopefully it's made me a better person. Everything is, about my children now,
Mm,
responsible for them, and also have that blessing of raising them in this world. So it's just um, mostly, it's like with me growing up, I'm like, okay, what do I think I missed? And I want to give that to them, you know.
mm,
Yeah, that's what motherhood is about.
mm. So when you're not looking after, um, you know, sharing that love and doing things for others, for your family, for your children, like how do you take care of your own health and well-being?
Yeah, oh my gosh, my husband and I talk about this all the time because when we have retreats, we're like trying to, encourage self care and say
Mm,
it's a good thing, because for a lot of us, we feel guilty when we do things for ourselves. We're like,
mm,
this money should have gone to that fat lovey lovey, or this money should go to my children. But we encourage and promote self care because, if your cup is full, there's more to give out. There's
mm.
more overflow for those around you. And then we talk about how we don't even do it ourselves.
And that's why I'm asking you, because as naturally in the line of work that you and Sapati Rev are in, like like you're in the communities, you're sharing space, you're sharing encouragement and motivation, and giving so much of your time and love to
Yeah.
others, through the gospel and things, through that work. But I bet you don't look after yourself. That's why I had to ask.
Yeah, no, definitely not as much as, I should or we should. And I think it's good that we tell each other. We're like, hey, you haven't done this for yourself in a while. So we give each other that space.
Mm.
And then my sisters are pretty good at it too. Like if they see me, they're like, you look like you just woke up when it's like, oh, okay, I just better go and brush my hair and do my nails or something.
Yeah. So you got to have some of that therapy, yeah, and then you
Yeah,
feel,
yeah. And it definitely makes a difference. Self care does lift you up,
yeah,
and it helps you lift other people up. I reckon.
yeah, for real.
Not easy.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, like honestly, like even like with teaching, like it's so easy to kind of give everything, like just spend a lot of time at work. Like it's easy to fall into that, and you're just like going, going, going. But I've really kind of like had to, um and like you said, the guilt, right? Oh, I should be doing this, but I've just like, that's what I've learned being here is, and it's hard, is just trying to take time to refill your cup, to just de-stress, to just find time to be still, which I know you've mentioned throughout the podcast, super important. But it's so easy to forget. And like
Mm,
last weekend, um I went, like, I just, like, I do this thing where I like to think I'm spontaneous. Oh, spontaneous. And I just don't like to plan stuff. And I, on Friday after work last week, I went and got a, because I had asked for a personal day this week, Monday. Like I was like, I'm taking one of my personal leave. So I was like, I've got 3 days. What am I going to do? So Friday I went and brought they have this pass called a Tokyo wide train pass, and you can go on all the bullet trains, like for a certain area. So just within Tokyo and just outside. Um, but I have this bucket list. There are 47 prefectures, like regions in Japan, and I've just been chipping away, like since I've been here, and I've been to 31 places now. So
oh,
I've got like, so I've, every chance I get, I'm like, I'll just get a train pass. So that's what I did. Friday I went and got the train pass. Saturday I went to two places, taking the bullet train, which is the fast train, because I love trains. I love riding. I love going out into the countryside. Saturday, did something else, went to a place that I've always wanted to go to, but it's just super expensive and it's so far. But because through this pass, you can go on the express train, I was like happy. Monday, oh yeah, so Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday, I went to another place. And honestly, when we back to school on Tuesday, I felt good. Like, I
Yeah.
felt refreshed. Not that I was tired because we only started back at work on the 10th. So it's not like I was like, oh, I'm at this point where I'm just about to like, I need to
Mm,
sleep for hours. I just was like, had planned it for ages. Like, these are the dates I'm going to take. And then I just did that. So I just had my weather app every day. Like, I changed my destination a few times because it was raining in some places and I
oh,
just went with it. So like, sorry,
nice.
my long story is like, I like to do that kind of stuff because like teaching, if you get like, if you just it can really like just you just
Yes.
yeah, you just have to remind yourself that your health is more important. Like, so sometimes you just got to look after yourself. Sorry, that's the point to my long story.
Yeah.
You
No,
know this, so
so good because my mom, my sister are teachers as well.
mm,
So it kind of, and Sapati used to be a teacher. He had a
mm,
little stint being a teacher, and he said he couldn't do it.
mm,
It's such hard work. So, we take our hat off to teachers. And I like how you said you didn't wait till you're like absolutely tired. And I think
yeah,
that's the point of it. Hey, it's that
mm,
ongoing self care. You don't get to the point of burnout or nothing
mm,
up before you try to. It's, that ongoing self care.
yeah, absolutely, man. And I think as islanders, as Samoans, naturally we just forget about it because it's normal for us to always be on the go, to always be doing
Mm,
stuff, helping other people, doing what we can for others. We just don't think about ourselves until that moment where you're in the hospital bed, like dying, you're in pain because you're so sick. And like, honestly, like I'm not really a resolution person. Like I don't make resolutions, but in my journal, I'm like, this is just the one goal I'm making for this year is to be intentional in terms of self-care. And if I
mm,
can, go away, like just day trips or something, it doesn't have to be super expensive.
mm,
Like I love walking, I love nature. So even doing something like that is it's just important because I told you before we started the podcast, last year was so challenging, like mentally, physically, emotionally, like work was just a lot of draining. Just not like, man, I was just like so exhausted, like, and I was sick at the same time. So it's just, you know, trying just to get through like every day. It was just this very long year. So I was, like when it hit like this year, I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do that again. Like, because the other thing with teachers with burnout is like, if you get sick, they can just replace you. It's not like they're gonna hold your job. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? It's like you get
Yes.
sick, they're just gonna call someone else, and if you die, yeah, they'll just replace you. Okay, that's
Yeah.
dramatic. But you know what I mean? So the point is, yeah, I hope that you just, continue to. I love how you said that you and Sapati talk about self care and how important it is. So for anyone listening here, I hope you're taking something valuable away from these stories. Book recommendations, sis. Book recommendations. Do you have any? Is there a favorite book that your children like? What? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the books for us, we've tried to read the same books since last year so we can talk about it with each
Mm,
other, and also books that help with our retreats. So, with
mm,
like mental health, spiritual health, and then, we've got to do physical health, but
mm. I feel you.
so yeah, I actually bought some books here because I wanted you to just see like this one. I love this person. I can't say her last name, but Deborah Filletta, Are You Really Okay? And she's a
Mm,
Christian counselor. So I like that, that idea and like destigmatizing counseling, for
mm,
our people as well, and for Christians where we think that's not for us. So that's a big message that we'll try to um, express during our retreats as well, is getting that sort of help and that sort of care, having somebody safe to talk to about different things. So I like that book. Are You Really Okay? This one is The Cross and the Switchblade. It was about this Fefe David Wilkinson. I don't know if you might have heard of him. And it's just a story about this countryside Fefe who went to New York City, and he made changes. He
Mm,
took God's word there in violent gangs. So his faith was that big. He was able to just listen to God's voice
mm,
and and move his ministry outside of the walls of church. So that's something that's motivating for us. It's not
mm,
having confined within the walls of the church and just taking God's word out there. But I love a lot of books by like Jackie Hill Perry. It's a lot by a lot of Fefe Owls.
mm,
Bevere's, Lisa and John Bevere, Craig Rochelle. He has a lot of books about, changing your mindset, how to think. We also had a marriage retreat. So this guy has helped us with one of his books,
mm,
Michael Todd, Relationship Goals. And it's not just relationship between man and wife. It's about relationship with anybody,
mm,
the family and the workplace, and how to do it God's way. Um, so, like we said, the world is, I think it's designed to make us busy. It wants us to be tired. It wants us to be far away from God. So it's taking that time to be still, knowing that God's always in our corner, and then just taking it back to Him. But whatever we do in life,
mm.
yeah,
Um, so plans for this year for Third Day Floristry, will Vaughan Park have more programs uh, happening this year? What can people look forward to? Or yeah.
yeah. Plans for this year, like you said, I haven't done any resolutions for this year. I'm just like, this is an ongoing thing that we just keep revisiting throughout
Mm,
the year. But, Sapati has reminded me of some closing dates for funding. And I'm
mm,
like, okay. Like, okay. So, yeah, we hope and pray that we'll be able to provide more and run more retreats this year. Pacifica focused as well, for our people, so they can come away and rest and just share Talanoa with everyone. My big boy starts high school, so just supporting him that way, with school, becoming a teenager, young
mm.
adults, like, oh no. And yeah, yeah, and then hopefully just see more family, like
Mm,
the elders of our family. Just want to visit them.
mm. Well, before we close the show, I like to ask the guests just to share some final words. Before we do that, I just want to say thank you so much, sis, for coming through and sharing, a bit of your journey. Sending you and Rev lots of love, and your kids, wishing you all the best. As we embark on another year, 2023, who would have thought? I had a primary school teacher who told us that there would be like cars flying around this time, and I still didn't see that in 2023. So I think that teacher lied to us. But yeah, just wishing you, you and your family, just all the best. Third Day Floristry, excited to see where that goes. Continues to evolve this year, and just yeah, keep on inspiring and keep up the awesome service and outreach that you're doing as part of you and Sapati's ministry. Lots of love, sis. And yeah, I'll hand it over to you
Oh,
to just round off the show with some final words.
thank you, sis. Yeah. Again, just thank you for thinking of me. I have been like looking at listening to some of your podcasts, especially when I know it's Ifakasa people, or those in New Zealand, or even those in the education field. And like you say, this is everyday people, but they're doing awesome things in their communities and their families and in their churches. So I just love reading that or listening to it. So keep up the awesome work. You said this is your 90th podcast. I'm like, what the heck? But thank you for sharing everyone's stories, and putting it out there on this platform that, other people get to listen to. And like you said, if it reaches out to one person or helps one person, then, it's so worth it. So God continue to bless you, sis. Keep you safe there in Japan, and continue to bless you in your work, teaching, and in your community there as well. Um, Thank you. Thank you for taking me away and have some quiet time from my kids. But just final words is just, God bless everyone. He's always for you, and that quote, if God is for you, who can be against you? So I think that's something that we can take with us in this new year. God loves you. He always wants the best for you. Um, so nothing else should bring us down. But yeah, Faftai Lava Rosa. Thank you, sis.